So today, we're going to dive into a pretty big clash of ideas. On one side, you've got our modern obsession with safety, with calculating every single risk. And on the other, there's this ancient, almost rebellious creative force that the sources call holy folly. It's really a battle for how we choose to live. So let me just start with a question. What if prudence, the virtue of being careful, of planning everything out, what if that very thing, when we push it to the extreme, stops being a shield and actually becomes a cage that traps our most vital creative impulses? To really get a handle on this, we're asked to imagine a place. Let's call it the city of accountants. In this city, every single action is measured. Every risk is calculated. Every single outcome has to be justified on some kind of ledger. It's a whole society where being cautious and risk-averse is the only thing that really matters. Okay, so picture this city, and suddenly, a man just starts singing a spontaneous song. And what happens? He's immediately silenced. But why? Well, because his song can't be measured. It doesn't have a practical purpose. That one wild human act of creation reveals that all the perfectly organized, meticulous noise of the city is really just a deep, spiritual silence. And this isn't just about being quiet. That silencing is a symptom of something much bigger, what the sources call the tyranny of prudence. It's what happens when a world of calculated safety just completely crowds out every other sacred value. And this slide, wow, it really lays out the two opposing worlds we're talking about. You've got the paved path, the ledger, the safety of the herd. And on the other side, the untrodden path, the holy journal, and the risk that comes with being an individual. This is the heart of the conflict right here. The person who lives in this prudent world, well, Nietzsche had a name for them, the last man. This is someone who has, in his words, invented happiness by basically getting rid of any real struggle. They want the predictable stuff, a steady salary, a good pension, people liking them. They're absolutely terrified of volatility, believing that what doesn't kill you actually makes you weaker. And so they stick to that crowded, paved path simply because it's safe. So if that's the comfortable cage, what's the alternative? Well, the sources point us to a really powerful and ancient tradition, the dignity of holy folly. This idea is perfectly captured in the Russian tradition of the Urodevy, or the holy fool. This is a person who pretends to be mad just to mock what the world calls wisdom. They intentionally shake up the social order to show everyone just how artificial it all is. You remember that singer in the City of Accountants? He was being a Urodevy, using his wild voice to show that the city's noise was totally hollow. And this is not some new idea. It has really deep theological roots. It goes all the way back to the Greek concept of moria, or holy folly. I mean, almost 2,000 years ago, St. Paul wrote, "We are fools for Christ's sake, but ye are wise in Christ." The holy fool is tapping into this long, powerful history of spiritual rebellion against just doing what you're told. In the opening of Goethe's Faust, we actually get a perfect cast of characters for this whole drama. First, you've got the director. He just wants to give the crowd what it wants so he can make a profit. He's the last man. Then there's the poet, this romantic idealist who's kind of stuck in the past. But then you have the clown. The clown represents creative, life-affirming folly, that Dionysian spirit that just embraces life in all its messy, chaotic, beautiful glory. All right, so all of this is building towards a new kind of hero, someone who consciously says no to the paved road and actually chooses this path of folly. Now, what's really interesting here is that the sources say there are actually two different kinds of this holy folly. First, you have ascetic folly. This is driven by kenosis, which is a Greek word for self-emptying. Think of the deep humility of someone like St. Francis crossing enemy battle lines. But then there's also creative folly, which is driven by pleresis, a feeling of fullness, of abundance. This is that generative, risk-taking spirit that's behind the Nazarenes' call for the boldest gambles. And the hero for our time, what the sources are calling the new noble, they managed to bring both of these together. This person needs the ascetic's courage to face being an outcast, to be called a fool by everyone, but they channel that courage into the creator's drive to build something new. Think of a founder betting it all on an idea no one else gets, or an artist chasing a strange new vision. They all kind of wear the mask of the fool to protect this fragile new thing they're trying to bring into the world. This person, this new noble, understands a fundamental truth for our age of prudence. The single greatest act of defiance you can make is to consciously turn away from that crowded, paved road and embrace the untrodden path. That is where dignity is found again. But here's the thing. Choosing this path isn't just something you do externally. It forces you into this profound inner battle against your own conditioning, against your own inner accountant. Nietzsche actually gives us a powerful metaphor for this journey, the path of the convalescent. It starts with a sickness, clinging to old, life-denying values. Then comes a crisis, a moment where you confront a really hard truth. Recovery isn't instant. It's this slow, deliberate process of re-embracing the world, the simple joys. And out of that, a totally new kind of strength is born. One that says yes to all of life, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. The huge insight here: real health isn't just not being sick, it's the strength you gain from having overcome it. And even after you've consciously rejected those old rules, a much quieter battle begins. It's like a war against a ghost, the shadow of those dead morals. It's about fighting the deep psychological habits and instincts that a life-denying system imprints on you, even long after you've left the system itself behind. So, what does all of this boil down to? It really comes down to a fundamental choice. It's about which accounting system you're going to use to measure the value of your own life. On one side, you have the official's ledger. It's all about numbers, it's finite, and it's completely risk-averse. In this book, everything has to balance out perfectly. But on the other side, you have the holy journal. It's about quality, not quantity. It's infinite, and it embraces risk, because it knows that any truly creative act, any spontaneous song, is going to beautifully throw the books out of balance. Ultimately, the choice is between the cold algorithm of the accountants, which just wants to optimize and control everything, and what one source so perfectly calls our sweet, foolish will. The dignity of folly is really the dignity of the human spirit saying, I refuse to be calculated. And that leaves us with one final question to take with you. In a world that demands a spreadsheet and a cost-benefit analysis for every little choice, what is the one madness without a quantifiable purpose, the one spontaneous song that you are brave enough to commit?